Welcome to another episode of Not for the Weak-Minded. Now, this is part 6 of my dissertation and me trying to explain to you how this whole entire world relates to frequencies, how they've lied to you about this created earth, the mechanisms in which govern it, and essentially how they've lied about you and how you even exist. And so, without going into too much spiel, because this one's a long one, I'm just getting into it. So, important methodological approaches and their limitations. So, the same approaches taken by the academics within all fields of research have always been split into two groups. Now, this has been evolution versus creation. And so, they both often use the same techniques, i.e., they use the same records, but interpret it completely differently. One group, the academics, and the other I've labeled the non-academics in this paper. However, that does include, people that are academics. They went and they got degrees, but they got their degree and they fully went, I don't, changed my mind. And, a lot of people think that just because the other side is saying something that's a bit they don't want to hear, or that it's not based on any kind of fact, any kind of science, or any kind of sort of evidence. It's just hearsay, and none of this is. It's all based on, archaeological, paleo, anthropological evidence, skeletal remains, and the study of, history for the last 2 decades, which is why they didn't why archaeology is so underpaid. They don't want us digging into the past, because of, that's where the truth lies, ultimately, in the golden age. So in the academic setting, the divide has often happened when a researcher or scientist within a department finds something he shouldn't. Now, this has relation to a few articles and academic papers I read about the production of non-knowledge and how they just keep the status quo going when other things, suggest that it's wrong, and unfortunately that's exactly what's been going on. I mean, the whole academic theories have been destroyed, as I said from the start, but they just keep plugging away at it because and people don't see that they're slave to the system, and money's the thing that keeps the world spinning, really, because it doesn't. So within certain subjects within the academics over the last 2 centuries or more, people have been fired, murdered, and because they don't want them digging into and particularly the paranormal. I mean, so many academics that went into the paranormal during the late 1900s to now, we've been sacked. They don't want you digging into the reality. They want you unconsciously walking around this world, not really knowing it. And that's exactly what a zombie is. It's a representation of a unconscious mind. And when you watch, like Game of Thrones, and you see that, it's all about the hive mind, and understand that nanotechnology is nothing new, and history's repeating itself. Where do you think this next technological thing's going to go? It's going to happen. And we can still fight it if you become conscious of it, aware of it, because consciousness is awareness of reality and oneself. And the more you become aware of it, the more your energies will become for the light, and you'll see the darkness and you will expose it eventually, and you'll come to an understanding that, you have been lied to about yourself, in this world and everything that governs it. It's not something to be afraid of, but people are so scared of the truth today. It's unbelievable. I mean, they'd rather accept lies than do the hard thing and go, right, fuck, we need to abolish money, we need to get together, we need to do this as a society, and yet they all are people out there trying to put all these, measures to be put in place to bring a peaceful society. But they're doing it but it's another agenda by the enemy, the United Nations. So This often results in the firing of the individual and sets the standard for work conditions within the academic society. So those people that have witnessed these sackings are now self-conscious about looking into what his colleague discovered and subsequently stays away from it. And so this is ultimately, from day one, been censored. You know, the paranormal, censored. And it's only now that even the mainstream media, the mainstream academics are actually, you know, taking this subject seriously, and they have discovered that we do vibrate with frequencies, and you have a soul, and none of this is like, you know, this has been proved by people that you trust still, you know, certain, let's call it the left side of science versus the right. It's all the same. So they stay away from it, and so when they go, right, we shouldn't be looking at that, let's just not bother, that's allowed them to get away with this stuff, because we've gone, it's not real, you know. I'm told, if you want your job, you don't talk about these things, you stick to the curriculum, you know. It's all about money, you know. And then a lot of people that do teaching jobs and stuff, they love teaching, and archaeologists love to you know, to teach and to learn, but they're teaching the wrong things, you know, and their passions have been used against them because of this massive deception about reality itself, about time, about geological time, you know, about the cosmological principles, about the mechanisms which actually govern our existence. So the process has been continuing for the 2 decades, especially to those who speak about information about the paranormal, and that has massive implications on your perception of reality. This subject is fundamental to our existence and is not incorporated into any way the mainstream theories that give you your perception to understand reality. That's essentially what's going on. The academics are also limited on a lot of topics which, if were known, destroys the mass illusion of the mainstream theories such as ufology, ancient advanced technologies, real covered up history, declassified military files, and understanding, you know, the occult, secret societies, the agendas of the Catholic Church, the parallels to the ancient past and now, and who's responsible for it, and the same people that have deceived us back then have deceived us yet again. The unseen forces of this world and the Gentile elites and the royals. The same methods are often used by the non-academic groups of researchers in terms of science, but because they provide evidence of a different interpretation, it does not get into the academic literature, nor does it get seen by the academic society themselves. This alone suggests that restrictions or censorship is at hand at the higher levels within the academic framework. They also literally cannot keep up with the amount of discoveries and the amount of things that would require the whole curriculum to change. Literally a whole paradigm shift away from every single thing we've ever thought we know about this world. And there is a divide happening right now in our society, right now across the world, across the earth, between creationism and evolutionists. And this divide has to do with a moral divide between our society and how those people that are still for evolution do not see reality. This alone, read that. The academic themselves are limited in time as well to research things which often wouldn't concern them in their field. However, it is the connectivity that ultimately brings with it a new concept of reality. If one would only look at all the evidence rather than a selection or one field, which they tried to do, but and again, because all fields are corrupt and they've entwined it in together, that this is why this lie is so epic. You know, and you have to go back to basics. You have to go back to the beginning of how they created this lie and see who did it. You know, and when you know it was the royals and bankers that actually created this in the 1800s, that should nowadays wake you up and go, hang on a minute, the elite were up to something there with their money, which still rules today. We need to abolish their rules, their ways, their lies, before it's too late. So this connectivity does bring with it a new concept of reality, and that's happening right now. So if one would only look at all the evidence rather than select one field, which means incorporating all out-of-place artifacts into the overall interpretation of reality, those within the academic structure sadly have been programmed the most as to spend time trying to prove these theories true while ignoring evidence to the contrary. The theory of evolution has multiple branches of the deception incorporated, associated with it, within all of it. The selectiveness of the paleoanthropological record is undoubtedly one of the main reasons that the theory of evolution is considered best fit. The knowledge of giant skeletons has been discovered around the earth, including back in Charles Darwin's time. Victorian and antiquarian museums had in them all sorts of oddities, including the remains of giants, including the remains of anatomical modern humans that are, the size of a 750 milliliter bottle, perfect, skeleton, but that small. And essentially they have used like I said, they've been very selective with all records, and when you start looking at everything else they've not included, that's when you realize they've lied. And now the non-academic groups, which are been trustworthy in the eyes of the public, so exposing these lies, are now actually part of the agenda as well, because they have used they're using the same records in a way that shows you the lies, but also in a way that makes you perceive the reality again in a way that is a lie. It's unbelievable stuff. And this involves Eric von Daniken, Ancient Aliens, all them. They're using truth and lies yet again, and I'm going to expose that soon with a few videos. Alien Con. The Bible, anyway, the Smithsonian even themselves have destroyed giant skeletons in the 1900s, because every single fucking thing that the Vieira brothers did, and Newman, can't remember his first name, but they did it together, Gary Newman, I think. They found just countless evidences of skeletons being discovered constantly. Giant skeleton, giant skeleton, giant skeleton. It is not a joke. They've lied to you about history, they've lied to you about ancient past, and just these skeletons being found alone should make you go, hang on a minute, okay. And then when you look at the pictures later on and go, oh, okay, they've most definitely lied about geological time. And that's when you realise the Bible has been telling you the truth. As much as it's inverted and changed by the enemy, and they've been using that, it's still in it, which is why it's being burnt around the world now, and why Christians are the target. They're being rounded up.